This is the Teleworking Technologies Roundtable Peer-to-Peer session, and this one is brought to you by Davenport Group. Davenport Group delivers innovative IT solutions to commercial customers and government agencies nationwide, specializing in designing and delivering data center modernization solutions that include virtualization, storage, data protection, hyperconverged, and client computing. With their industry-leading partner, Dell Technologies, Davenport Group.
Security code or change your current security.
Sorry there. Dell Technologies Davenport Group brings real-world technical experiences, business know-how, and an all-in commitment to every engagement. So, I guess I will hand it over to the moderator, which I think is Sandy Vick. So I'll turn it over.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome everybody to the Roundtable for Teleworking Technologies. This is an opportunity for us to get together and collaborate on some of the teleworking technologies that we've implemented in our areas. Find out what worked, what didn't work, see what we can do to implement in our own areas going forward. So to get the conversation started, I'd be interested in hearing what types of software everyone utilized in their different areas for both their staff and for their organization.
Someone talking.
Sandy, this is Molly Harper. We utilize Teams a lot while we've been doing a lot of our remote collaboration. So I think we've had several different platforms that like Skype and WebEx, but we ended up standardizing as the event continued on to utilize Teams. And that's where we've also been sharing documentation and things that we've all been working on various projects that we do with our clients and our internal meetings. So that's been a very helpful tool that we've utilized throughout this whole epidemic. It's always been there, but I think it forced us to use it in order to get the most out of our communication, so we weren't emailing each other to death and kind of misunderstanding things sometimes. So that's one tool that we've been using.
Thanks, Molly. Sorry, I wasn't sure if I was being heard or if if I was supposed to do something with the mic. Sorry, this is the first time I've been on it. We also utilize Teams to a huge extent. We used it both in our own IT organization, and we also utilized it across the board throughout our organization. That's the method that we used almost entirely, both for our public meetings and for our private meetings as well. Anyone else have input on what they utilized in their organizations?
In Fayetteville, we're using Zoom for pretty much across the enterprise, but also interdepartmentally to communicate. Our CIO, Dwayne, I see he's here, implemented a daily update where we not only kind of talk about the COVID stuff, but we talked about departmental issues as well. Is somewhat similar to a Scrum. And we have, for our remote folks, we have shored up our virtual infrastructure to make sure everybody can get connected back into their daily responsibilities. We also shored up our VPN. So we have quite a few things kind of working to make sure we have something for everybody.
Good information. So did any of you encounter any of the security issues that some of the folks with Zoom encountered?
Edgecombe County's been using Zoom also, and we haven't encountered.
I'm sorry, Jackie, at least I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. We've been using Zoom a lot for our public and private meetings, And it's worked really well for us. We haven't encountered any problems so far.
Good to know.
Neither have we. In our organization, we're using a combination of Zoom for our meetings, internal and as well as our public meetings. And then our IT team is using TeamViewer not only for remote management, but for internal department meetings. And that seems to be effective for our group. Like Dwayne said, we've shored up our VPN as well, and we're providing remote desktop access to our leadership who needs direct access to their desktop platform. So
We also utilize TeamViewer for remote access as well, and that's worked well for us. We have Palo Alto firewalls, so we do our VPN through the Palo Alto Global Protect, and had to do some heavy lifting on this side to get everything ready for all the teleworking that was taking place. Anybody else?
Yeah, Francis from Mecklenburg County. We're using Teams. We're also looking into, well, actually officially we're WebEx and then Teams. We also have Global Protect, but what we did was we turned on Always On, and that seemed to help us.
I'm sorry,
with the
say again
remote.
what you turned on with Global Protect?
Always On.
Oh, okay,
Global
yes, we
Protect.
did. We also did the same.
Mm-hmm. Because we had to mobilize all of our call centers, and there was 21 of them, which is approximately almost 400 staff at one time, and get them home. So with Always On, we eliminated the MFA with MFA, and that kind of helped, even though our call center still, we were taking about 400 a day, but it was fun.
That's a hefty call volume. So I've heard WebEx, Teams, Zoom. Anybody use anything else? Okay, so I'm curious, out of those different technologies that you're using for remote access, were any of them pre-existing prior to the COVID-19 epidemic, or did you already have them? Did you have to acquire them? How did that work for all of you?
for us, the TeamViewer was pre-existing. We did have a very limited number of VPN users. So we had felt the strain and we're actually in the process of putting in a new VPN server when all this happened. So that kind of pushed the terms of that project a little bit faster for us to get that put in. So VPN is fairly new as far as the number of users that we have on the network right now.
Yeah, Nash County is also an Office 365 shop, and we had already implemented Teams. However, we had not implemented Teams to the extent that we did when this hit. We were using it on a limited basis, and then once this happened, we rolled it out very quickly. But it was very helpful to us, the fact that we already had it, we were already using it, we were already familiar with it. So it was a lot easier to get everybody else up to speed on it. Anybody else?
We already had pre-existing technology. For us, the ramp up was different because it was kind of massive and within a short period of time. So that ramp up was kind of the big thing with us, and we rolled out soft phones as well for customer service type positions, so folks that would have to be on the phone and task with their hands and stuff. So we were doing a soft phone pilot, and we kind of pushed that out and got that out into more hands as well.
What do you utilize for your VoIP system?
Avaya.
Anybody else with your pre-existing, or did you have to implement? And if so, how did you go about it?
Hi, this is Marie from Cabarrus County, and we actually were like you. We had pushed out Teams, had just recently gone from Skype over to Microsoft Teams, but with the need to have so many more people working from home, we ended up having to go with Teams full blown, and it's worked out really good because I support like the DHS. I'm a business system analyst through IT, and today they had their all leadership Teams meeting. And so some people were at work, some people were at home, and just bringing everybody together. It's just really neat to see how you can have 150 people on a phone call, so to speak, through Teams. Not really a phone call, but through Teams. And just to see everybody participating. And I mean, our IT department had to really push, I think they pushed out an extra 180 something laptops just to get people working at home. So we were trying to be innovators, but it was a push to be an innovator all at one time. So, sometimes you want things to happen, and then when they're made to happen, then it's really exciting to see how quick everybody can work together to make that happen.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most exciting things that we encountered, was to actually our management, upper management, and county manager's office, administration, they all were very open to embracing new technology, which isn't always the case. I'm sure probably many of you had that same experience. So it was exciting to be able to show off some of our toys that, that we had, that we wanted everybody to start using, and that resistance was not there. They were eager to embrace the new technologies and to learn. As a matter of fact, in some cases, we had to rein them in. They were creating teams right and left, and we were, well, hold up. But yeah, it's been exciting to see that technology that they've been embracing. It's been good for us. Anybody else?
I don't know that we've had any specific challenges with the technology that we deployed out to our users, but one of the issues that we had is our staff live in such widespread areas, and a lot of those areas are rural, and they didn't have internet service at home, which was a surprise. We didn't know that. And several of them, like Marie said, didn't have laptops. So delivering out that equipment and getting that in their hands, we worked with Verizon to get some hotspots that could connect in their area. So that was a learning experience, something I think that will help us as we move forward with teleworking in the future.
We also encountered several individuals that needed to telework from home that did not have internet access. So it was, in most cases, I think they did have cell service, so we were able to roll out MiFis or turn on hotspots on their cell phones, or in some way, shape, or form. But we did have a few people that had absolutely no option. So that was difficult for them and for us. So I'm curious, speaking of the laptops that you had to roll out, I know we had to roll out around 100 laptops for our folks. What about everybody else? Did you already have the equipment in place? How did you go about acquiring the equipment? What kind of collaboration did you have to get for the equipment, the laptops? Did you use desktops? Curious what everyone's experience was in that regard.
So we did not have a lot of laptops. We basically had to go pull cyber waste off the shelf and start deploying it just to get folks up and running. I mean, we did have laptops for the folks that already had them, but I mean, for Pender, we had a no work from home policy prior to this. And, we're in the same situation, very rural, had to get jetpacks as well, and hoped that the folks that were getting laptops had internet connection. And it was a huge challenge. I think we ended up with maybe 20 laptops that we could find that were decent enough to go out. So folks are having to still share those, or, it was first come, first serve. And we did, in fact, put a desktop out in the field for payroll. But of course, I don't mind doing one for payroll out of anybody else. So, it was a huge challenge, and it was a hurry up and wait type situation that, we were told to get it done, and then hold on, we haven't made I think we were in a holding pattern for about 2 weeks before they pulled the trigger to telework. And, we actually got surge licenses from NetMotion. Did anybody else do that or have to do that? And And unfortunately, our 60 days is up Friday, so now I'm currently working on a plan to demobilize that because NetMotion will not extend that past 60 days. So, FYI.
So I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the surge license on NetMotion. We also have NetMotion, but I'm not familiar with the surge licensing.
So this is something that it's actually kind of slick and kind of cool that they do this, but NetMotion has hit us up. We're a hurricane-prone county, and they've hit us up almost every time we were going to be impacted by a hurricane and said, hey, you know, do you need anything from us? We'll give you some extra licenses. We'll give you extra server licenses, whatever you need to get by. And, you know, we have considered taking them up before, but we never really had to. But in this case, we had to rely on that in order to get these laptops out in the field because we only had like 139 licenses. And we ended up giving they gave us 500, which we didn't even, I think maybe we used like 100 of those. So it for us, it worked out great. But when they say 60 days, they mean 60 days. There's no budging on that unless you're going to pay for them. It's kind of like the crack dealer theory, right? You get the first hit for free, and then you got to come back and buy the rest of it.
Okay, so I have to apologize. Like I said, this is my first time doing this. So apparently people have been making chat comments and I have not been paying attention. So give me just a few minutes. Let me look back and see what I missed. Chris Smith, Lexington, they're also using, I'm going to back up to some of the first questions that we had. Chris Smith in Lexington, they're using Zoom mainly for citywide calls. So they're also using Teams. Benita Collins, they're doing Zoom. So quite a few Zoom users. Duo 2FA, Wendell Lupton. We are also looking at Duo 2FA. Did you already have that in place prior to this? He may have left. Okay. Also Teams, it looks like the ones that we've already mentioned are the same, where you've got Teams and Zoom, WebEx. To the VPN, Cisco AnyConnect VPN. And then more discussion on the surge licensing. Okay, thank you. I think we're caught up. I'll try to pay more attention to that. If you don't have your chat turned on, you may want to turn it on. People are making some pretty good comments there as well. So one of the things that we did in Nash County, since we had to roll out 100 laptops, we obviously did not have 100 laptops in stock. So we were able to do a couple of things. One of the things that we did was we reached out to our Board of Elections department. They keep a lot of laptops on hand for the elections booths when they're doing elections. So they had a large number of laptops, and we were able to utilize about 35 of their laptops. What we did was pull out the hard drives. We did purchase hard drives to go in them. So they pulled out their elections hard drives. We replaced them with our hard drives, imaged them, and rolled them out. And then to make up for the rest of the ones that we needed, we actually ended up renting laptops from a company out of Raleigh. So we rented the rest of the laptops that we needed. We had full access to them. We brought them in here. We completely wiped them, put our own images on them, and rolled those out. So those were the two methods that we used to get all the laptops that we needed. And in that process, we had to put in an agreement that we had each employee sign that they were responsible for the laptop. It had to be returned. So that was our experience here in Nash County. Anybody else have information on how they rolled out their devices?
Here in Randolph,
Ours was similar to what was described. We did pull out cyber waste once we started getting rid of the usable laptops that were in-house. That was a concern for us because we do have a disposition policy through our board that we shouldn't have that, but it is temporary. With the state contract through Dale, we knew that we could not get new equipment with a quick turnaround. So we did have to purchase essential laptops for our business office, finance staff. We unfortunately had to go through Amazon and get just the best hardware that we could put together and get that shipped to our personal houses to get those distributed. But it is a way of getting people the technology that they need when they need it. And we're just going to have to support those as best we can until we can get the better equipment in.
Yeah, we also utilized Amazon to order all the hard drives that we were putting in our laptops. So yeah, that we were able to get what we needed and get it fast. So yeah, that worked out well for us. Looks like Mecklenburg County also utilized their Board of Election office and got, and then also ordered from Dell.
in Randolph, we had approximately 30 business continuity laptops that were there for a situation similar to this. Of course, in Randolph, we don't typically work from home, so that was entirely new, and we were sending a lot more than 30 home. So we had to search around, and we found about 50 to 60 that one of our departments was getting ready to send to GovDeals. Well, they got brought back, and we had already taken the hard drives out to be destroyed, so we wound up having to go through and put the hard drives back in and image those. And then for my team, actually, I found the trash of the trash. These weren't even good enough to go to GovDeals, and wound up imaging those. And that was about 9-10 of us. And I've heard plenty of nice things about those laptops, but they pretty much got the job done. We're a top PA shop as well, and our network administrator had to do a lot of work to get VPN working for a lot of people. We did have some desktops to where we would be able to just RDP into the desktop, which made that job a little easier, but not everyone fell into that boat. And we had no standard video technology, so we wound up going from Zoom to Skype to, we still haven't settled on anything yet, but right now we're pretty much settled on Skype. So all this has been entirely new when we picked up our office and went home.
So did you do your Skype for Business through Office 365?
We're not Office 365 yet. As a matter of fact, that deal's just been inked, so we had no access to Teams, or even with the free version, they had some sort. Our domain was locked for some reason. I don't know exactly how all that worked, but they wouldn't let us use Team in the trial mode either. So Teams wasn't available, and we wound up going with Skype Personal, and just to get through everything. But I suspect as we go through our Office 365 implementation, we'll be moving to Teams.
Gotcha.
Here at Brunswick, and I think Neal Galloway's on here, and he can better explain it than I can. But we also had trouble getting laptops, so we worked through Planet Technologies and Microsoft to allow people to securely remote in with their personal devices. So Neal, if you're on here, you can explain it a lot better.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me okay. It looks like
Yeah, Neal, I think we're having trouble hearing you. At least I am.
Is this any better?
Yes, much better.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so here, as Steve mentioned, we're met with Planet initially because we had looked to purchase some laptops, but the inventory wasn't really there for us to get the number that we thought we needed. So we looked to the Windows virtual desktops inside of Azure, which means that we ended up standing up additional subscription to our Office 365 environment, where we formed up the site-to-site VPN and created some desktop pools where we handed out full desktops and remote desktop application only. These were conditional access for MFA and heavily locked down using group policy. And what we found was most of our users preferred to remote desktop back into their workstations here on premise. So the bulk of our users that use that Windows virtual desktop environment were connecting into just the RDP application itself, which would just present them with their federated credentials login, and then the RDP window where they would plug in their workstation name. And then we had a group policy that enabled RDP for the listed users, which when they left the site, they would be added to the group that would allow them to RDP into their desktop. So that ended up being a very flexible solution for us, especially coupled with being able to send their desk phones home with a built-in VPN feature with a desk phone. So people were able to sit at home on whatever device that they may have had through the virtual desktop app for Azure, or through the web page, where they'd be able to log on and get that remote desktop session like they were sitting in the office, and have the ability to have their desk phone sitting there at home, which we had to do, send them home with a little bit of cabling and power injector for those phones. But it wasn't as bad as some people thought it might be. But we also, by the way, use Teams. And when I look at our Teams report, you know, in February, we had basically 0 Teams meetings or chats. And today, if you were to look, we'd have an average of, 8 meetings and over 350 chats.
So I have seen a number of questions where people are asking whether or not the transition from desktops to laptops looks like it's going to be a permanent transition. Do you get the feeling that in your organizations you're going to be moving more to a laptop environment rather than a desktop environment?
Not in the Fayetteville side. We do that assessment yearly anyway, to find out who's essential, and most of our essential folks and work from home tasks, they're assigned laptops anyway. So anyone else, we kind of take that on a case by case basis. If their business case is justifiable, then we'll do a reassessment and take a look at it. But I don't see us doing that across the board.
Yeah, I think that we have a mixed environment here. I think probably most people do. We have quite a number of users that have laptops on docking stations where they can, especially those users that go out into the field, our Department of Social Services, our inspectors, those types of folks, and some of our nursing staff also have laptops on docking stations that they can utilize. Throughout this pandemic and trying to get laptops for everyone, it's been interesting. If we had already had those laptops in place for everyone, then they would have already had them, and it would have been a non-issue for most people. However, everybody knows that laptops are essentially way more expensive than buying a desktop for somebody. So there is the cost factor involved in whether or not you tried to go to an all laptop environment. I think it would be cost prohibitive for most people. What's been the experience with everyone else with your transitioning from laptops to desktops?
Well, Edgecombe County has been transitioning some of their essential people to laptops. Our finance department mostly uses a laptop. A lot of our health and nurse people, and we have laptops in DSS, not necessarily for each worker, but that were used for going to court and home visits and stuff. So they have been utilized, and we have most of what we needed in place.
This is a.
I'm sorry, was someone speaking?
at Wake County, we're going to continue to push laptops. It's not going to be 100%, but we've been doing it for almost 10 years now. We've been pushing laptops as everywhere it can go. So it's just going to be a continuing process until basically everyone who can use one is going to have one.
So in Wake County, being as large as your organization is, how many extra laptops did you have to come up with, or did you already have them?
We had a pretty large inventory due to annual CIP replacements that we were able to pull from. We actually ended up pulling several departments that still use desktops. We actually just had them pick their desktops up and take them home. And we pushed the VPN client to all the desktops, and they just took their desktop, monitor, keyboard home, and work from home with the desktop. Works just the same. So that was our fix to not have to order multi-hundred laptops. So.
And I also see where Francis Davis in Mecklenburg County, they were able to use the cell phones on their laptops, or they put their cell phones on their laptops. So through all of this, what new technologies have you found to be the most helpful?
Say for Wake, it was Teams. We kind of got lucky, and we've been moving from Skype for Business into Teams, and we completed that migration on March 3rd, just a couple weeks before we sent everybody home. And so we were prepared at that point to be able to run Teams, and so it's been very good to have everybody over there.
Hey Sandy, it's Maurice.
Hey Maurice.
Good to see everybody online. I would say definitely Teams has been one of the most impactful tools that we've been able to use. Also, Zoom obviously is another tool that has helped us to be able to continue doing remote instruction. I would also say that we are experimenting with something called OpenReel. OpenReel is a software. It's a cloud provided software that allows you to real easily take a phone and maybe one of those light rings and create remote videos. So in the case that you have someone who needs to get a quick video out with a transcript or even a teleprompter-like environment, OpenReel allows you to do that. I've played around with it just a tad bit with a demo license from the university campus office. We haven't purchased it yet, so I can't really tell you about the cost, but it is very slick, and it does allow for really high-end video to be produced without necessarily having high-end equipment. So that's one of the things that we have kind of stumbled across that is helping us as far as thinking about remote instruction.
What was that called again, Maurice?
OpenReel. I'll put it in the chat.
That would be great. So I think Chris commented about the encryption. I know in Nash County, we encrypt all of our laptops anyway. So all of our laptops were encrypted. We also encrypt some of our desktops depending on the kind of information that people deal with. So we do both. We absolutely encrypt all laptops, all mobile devices get encrypted, and then we do have some desktops that we also encrypt. How does everybody else handle that?
Pretty much the same way here in Fayetteville. But once you log into the enterprise environment, you're under our security anyway. So a lot of our users, they have laptops, but the only thing that they do is access our HTML VPN, HTML virtual connection. They don't actually do anything else with it. So by virtue of how they connect, they're encrypted anyway. And a lot of them are using their home computers because they can just get on that HTML connection and come into the environment.
So I'm curious, do you have policies in place about people using their personal devices? The people that I'm particularly interested in are the people that deal with personally protected information.
Well, those folks for that under the HIPAA laws and all of that, like all of those positions, finance, payroll, HRD, those folks have laptops as their primary. So they VPN and they it's kind of business as usual for them.
Right.
For everyone else, yeah, there is processes and policies around what they can do. And we also had a PowerPoint presentation and training with documentation for folks that have never worked from home on the do's and don'ts and things of that nature, how to do different things. We did that across the enterprise before we start letting people go home. And all the directors was behind that and had to sign off on all of that. And of course, the city manager's office had to sign off on everything before everything got launched. And of course, council approval.
So did you have most of your policies already in place, or did you have to implement new policies?
We had most of our policies in place for remote users, but we just had to kind of simplify some things for folks that never ever went home with a laptop. They've done no type of connecting. If you just gave them the instructions, they probably couldn't even read it and go do it. So we just kind of thought we had to do a demonstration and do like a detailed walkthrough for those folks. And we, of course, we recorded it and so they could go back and access it at their leisure. But everything pretty much was in place already.
In hindsight, I think that would have been a great idea for us to have done as well. I think we did a lot of one-on-one training with folks that we probably could have avoided had we done similar to what y'all did.
We did them both. We also did the one-on-one. So if you were getting a laptop as a loaner, when you came to client services to pick up that device, when they sat down with you and configured how you were going to connect, logged you in, walked you through, and made sure everything was working before you signed the paperwork to take it with you. So you got the big bang and you got the personal touch as well.
Yeah, it sounded like y'all did a good job handling it. What was everyone else's experience with supporting your users working from home once they had their devices?
This is Gary Koontz from Forsyth County. It wasn't a lot of change in the standpoint from it, just from a strategic standpoint. We've been moving towards the anytime, any device model for a while, and from anywhere is the last part of that, anytime, any device, anywhere. So for us, it was a matter of not really which tool sets you want to use, because what we found out is based on which department you're in and who you're connecting to, there'll be different tool sets. I mean, some use Zoom, go to meetings. I mean, it was a free for all for which companies you're doing business with on which tool they would use to connect. Overall, we're a Google App shop. So internally it was a lot of Google Meets, Google Hangouts, Google Meets, things like that. But so it really wasn't a question of what products we would use. And it really wasn't that, I mean, you know, as part of our remote strategy anyway, we've rolled out BitLocker for years now on all of our mobile stuff. So that wasn't really it. Our biggest challenge was, I'd say, more dynamic policy updates from the standpoint that some of, and I call them more guidelines, some of the management guidelines that we had kind of got changed. So for us, really the whole COVID pandemic was, I hate to say it was a good thing, because you know, our county manager looked at me and said, "Man, this Google Meet's a great product." He said, "I wish I'd have known about it." I was like, "Dude, we've had it for 5 years." So it's just nobody uses it. So for us, it was really a good thing overall from a technology. It really forced people to accept change that they may not have otherwise had to. Nobody likes change. When you're pushed into it, then you realize what great tools you have. We did have to expand our VPN connections, and so we did repurpose a Fortinet box to open SSL VPNs on that. Again, we can push out the connection piece through SCCM, so very little end user training overall. yeah, it was surprising for us that we was as ready as we were for such a major change, which was really, really pleasant. I'm glad because it caused teleworking. Been trying to do that for years and never got upstairs. You're like, well, you know, what's the public going to think if you're not in your office? You know, now it's like teleworking's here to stay, and that's kind of where the county's position is why are we going to upfit office space for you when you can do your, you know, most of your job from home? So kind of it from our end.
Yeah, I echo the any device, anywhere, anytime mentality. Wake's been pushing that big time. That was our big move into Office 365 a couple of years ago, was to really promote that. So while we do provide devices, we also do provide some best practice guidance for somebody who wants to, say, check their email from their personal laptop. We do require multi-factor authentication, so we do approach it from a good security model, but we're not going to tell you you can't do that. And so it's been good. We've been pushing teleworking. I know my team in particular, we've been working from home 2 to 3 days a week for 5 years now. And there's talk that several teams that have been perfectly fine to work from home, that we may go telework, you know, just come into the office twice a month or something to that extent. So we'll see if that actually shakes out. Wake is still currently working from home completely, and we will be through the end of June at a minimum. So we'll see what happens as we come out of this. But we've been prepared for that. We used our desktop techs. We pulled them into help desk roles to help answer help desk calls as the uptick in help desk stuff came up. But really, before they did that, all of the desktop techs are assigned multiple departments, but they've got groups that they directly support primarily. And their job before they could work from home basically was they had to make sure that their departments were ready, that their equipment was ready, that their users knew what they needed to do, that software was installed. It was pretty interesting to see those guys step up and really push all this equipment in a pretty efficient manner. I had one other thing, but it totally left me, so I'll come back on.
So I'm curious how, especially with the larger organizations, how you handled your hands-on support of your devices.
I actually can't answer that. I know a lot of our help desk right now, we utilize a combination of our support tool, which is a Avante product for remote desktop, but we also are utilizing the screen sharing within Teams for a lot of kind of one-on-one how-to training session type stuff for some of this more advanced stuff.
Sandy, for our on-site. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'll mute.
Okay, for our on-site, we have scheduled with our users to come in on a specific date, provide their equipment to us at our facility, repair it, do whatever hardware repairs are needed, and then have them come back to pick it up. So it has been a heavier lift for our team, but it's been manageable having it done that way to observe all the social distancing practices.
Yeah, basically what we did at Nash County was not only in IT, but in the other departments, people were rotating staff in and out. So you always had somebody on site, but you tried to have the majority of your staff off site. So you had just a couple people in the office and most people from at home. So any hands-on things were handled by those staff that were coming in and out during the week. Anybody else's experience?
Yeah, with Mecklenburg County, what we did was we took that opportunity to tier our desks. So we have now a level 1, level 2. And then our desktop team, if we have anything that definitely requires hands-on, we're scheduling the staff to bring it into our conference center, and that is available Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yeah, see, in Onslow, we had one person generally in the office, everyone else was remote, so whoever was in the office was essentially the hands. You know, we did have people pop in and out, so we had people dropping off equipment here, and maybe people would come in and work on that equipment and then go back home. Or I know Sean had to come in and meet a vendor about our UPS solution, or not the UPS, at the HVAC solution for our primary data center needed a little work, so he met him there.
There was an interesting question that somebody posed in the chat, and that was about virtual apps and virtual desktops. Did anybody utilize that through this, or are you currently utilizing that?
We are here in Brunswick.
Wake does have a Citrix environment, although I don't think its usage actually went up through this. It was predominantly for specialized application delivery, and I don't believe we increased our usage, truthfully.
For Forsyth County, we did not. Again, the model we're under, we have a web portal that can deliver some of our on-prem apps via the web. So it was just a higher utilization of the portal usage, but it does not require the local installation of those apps. So really no need for a VDI environment.
Hey, Sandy, if I may, I have a question for the group.
Absolutely.
You know, I heard about, you know, how we actually transition out, and, you know, we were thinking about a 24-hour city hall. We've been using a 24-hour city hall concept that wasn't funded as much as I wanted to be, but it did, as someone stated, you know, the pandemic, that's one of the blessings. It was able to move that infrastructure forward. We have calls every Wednesday, well, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, our senior leadership team around the whole pandemic. And one of the things that questions I've been bringing up for the last 2 weeks to them is how do we transition back? It's my understanding today at 5 o'clock that the governor is going to move into phase 2, which I think is going to open up some more things. You're going to see more city managers, county managers start saying, okay, City Hall is now open. So what are some of the ideas around transitioning back, not just getting the equipment back, but just within, you know, how personnel is going to work, that staggered schedule? As we always know, is people, you know, the three P's, you know, the way I kind of people, process, well, PPT, or the people, process, and technology. They always like to put the technology first, but what are some of the processes you're putting in place and some of the technologies that you guys are putting in place in an effort to make that transition smoother? Because some people, you know, realize now that they can do a lot of work from home, but those business practices and processes are different when you are totally in the office versus when you're totally remote, and then you have some hybrid. The processes are different. So I'd be interested to hear what some of the initiatives, if you will, people are using to bring people back in.
Hey, I'm gonna jump in there, Dwayne. I think that's a great question. So at the university, I was on a call earlier today, and we're trying to figure out how do we bring basically 40,000 people back to campus, which includes students.
Right.
And so one of the thoughts has been like, how do we create an atmosphere of social distancing? How do we create the classroom experience for you all to come to the School of Government and feel safe and comforted? So here are some of the things I know that are probably going to take place. There's going to be there's already a facilities plan that's being looked at to determine how many people can you safely have in the building with social distancing. So our 300 room classrooms are going to be reduced down to probably 50 people in the room. There's got to be some sort of PPE. Basically, people will be having masks on. I think we're probably going to have staggered work schedules, meaning that we're not all going to be in the building. So all School of Government employees will probably not be all in the building. All of the IT team will not be down in the IT suite. We'll have a staggered work schedule. Simply because, you know, the reason why we went out, there still hasn't really been anything put in place to sort of stop that from happening. So we really don't have a real clear sense of, you know, how to do that, other than keep people socially distanced, using PPE, washing your hands frequently. We've talked about extending the day. So we would go from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., which is crazy. There's going to be 45 minutes between class changing. These are our proposals. Nothing is set in stone. This is the plan as of 5:05 on Wednesday. It'll probably be something different next week. But I think there has to be some sort of thought about how do you integrate back into the workspace. I don't think we have the right plan, but I do know we are having those conversations, and I do believe a hybrid model is going to be some model that is going to be going forward. Even in the classes that we teach at the School of Government, there's going to be, we're not calling it online learning, we're calling it remote instruction, simply because I think there's a stigma with online learning, but I think it's going to be remote instruction of some sort where there will be some people on campus, a lot of people in the Hollywood squares. I think that's just going to be the nature of the beast until there's some sort of therapeutic prevention against this or some sort of vaccine.
And I would agree with that. From Nash County, I think what we're looking at here is also going to be a very gradual hybrid environment. We've got construction efforts going on with plexiglass getting installed at our service counters, and we have certain areas where staff are very close together. So I think that we are also looking at staff continuing to telework and rotate in and out. Certainly in the IT department, we're looking at that obviously in IT, that works well for us since we do so much of that already. What's everyone else's feeling on the transition?
Like bringing people back was easy, but we had to develop a plan real quick to clean everything, make sure it was clean before it was back in the environment. And so our AFM actually has a mister that does it's like a fogger or something, and we made sure that that's good for technology, and we have a plan to use that if we get a whole bunch of equipment back at once that we can't wipe down.
What was that, Glenn? What was that again? What tool did you use or application you used to clean the equipment?
It's like some kind of fogger. I can get the equipment, but it sends out like a smoke screen of disinfectant, and it was safe for equipment, but that we'd only use if we had, a bunch of machines coming back at once. Lately, they've been coming back onesie-twosies, and we're just wiping them down, with wipes pretty much, and making sure they're clean before they go back into the office environment,
Yeah, that's a great point, Glenn. Also, too, one of the things that we had to get, Dwayne, were gloves for our IT professionals. So they had gloves and the wipes and the sprays, and we even had to provide masks. It's a very unique situation. Even onboarding, we had to create a socially distanced way of onboarding new employees coming in. So we have a 2-hour meeting with every new employee that comes into the School of Government. And so creating a place where you could actually sit 6 feet apart and still walk somebody through how to log in, how to use Teams, how to use Zoom, and all of the plethora of software tools that we have at the university. So we had to create an environment to do that as well.
Got it. Okay.
So I see that we're getting short on time here, but there were 2 other questions that I did want to throw out to the group. One was phones. How did you handle your office phones with your teleworkers?
We have an on-premise traditional phone system, and we had all of our users who have local numbers, unfortunately, forward their phones to their cell phones. That's not the best solution, but it was a workable solution for us now. But it has brought up the need for us to look at unified communication. So that's something I'm doing now. I think that that's going to be the way of the future for telephone communications.
We are a Cisco shop, and we utilize Cisco Jabber soft clients on iOS or Windows, and that we weren't fully licensed for that from the get-go, but we expanded that to anyone who needed it. We were able to get a license for them.
Yeah, we have a voice over IP system, but we had not upgraded yet to a version that would allow us to do soft phones. So we had to implement that. We were kind of late getting that done, but we did upgrade our phone system, and then we were able to do soft phones. Anybody else?
So after screaming about getting people into Teams for the last year, this actually has been, I think actually I got blamed for the crisis at one point just to move people into Teams. And that really Teams really seemed to be the primary mode of communication internally.
Yeah, I do agree. We're using Teams a lot for internal communication, but Jabber is still our external traditional phone solution.
We've got to the point that pretty much most, if not, I would say 95% of our calls, almost every internal call now is through Teams, especially within IT. And we ended up purchasing some audio conferencing licenses to test with during this pandemic. And I'm telling you what, those things work great. I mean, I've got one of the two assigned, and we've been testing it quite a bit. And I think at this point we've got 2 or 3 other folks that are buying licenses for that because of that, to be able to allow folks that don't have the microphone and whatnot to be able to communicate with us on calls. And I mean, I've gotten to a point now that I hate using my desk phone. So anytime I can do a Teams call or even use a soft phone, I'm all for it.
Yeah, Earl, that's good information. We also purchased the audio conferencing. I'm curious, how did you handle the toll calling aspect of that?
So you've got a good point. I mean, honestly, I couldn't see a way around it with the toll feature. And most people that used it it was kind of few and far between, but there's a few folks that still have the traditional desktops and don't have microphones and keyboards and things like that. So, or God knows, not keyboards, microphones and webcams. So they would use the call in number. But you're right. I mean, I couldn't see a local number. I actually went there and tried to add some local numbers, but it seems like toll was the only option at this point. So if anybody has any other options, please let me know.
Yeah, and I'd be also interested in that. We also looked at how we could get around the toll, whether or not we wanted to take on the toll-free calling, those charges, or if we needed to offset those to our customers. It just seemed kind of crazy that, we had the audio conferencing licensing, but there were no local numbers that we could utilize for our conference calls. That was a bit frustrating.
That is
and for us,
the reason we're not using Teams PSTN calling is the local number stuff. And so the traditional PSTN numbers all run through our phone system. And that was where we made the distinction, was around the call-in stuff.
I will say for us, we're not using Teams as our normal day-to-day communication when it comes to, having phone numbers. We're all using the Teams app and everything. Except for the few folks that don't have the option. We might have some external agencies that need to come in the call, fire departments and whatnot. But, this really helped drive home for us the voice over IP in the cloud initiative that we're trying to start in next year's budget. Not this upcoming year, it got removed, but the year after the next fiscal year, we're trying to actually move from Cisco UCM to a cloud-based solution. And I'm all for it. I'm tired of being the phone company. So it would have been very nice to have during this.
Absolutely.
We actually got some of those conference numbers on Teams. We don't use it for the desk, but we got enough conference numbers for the the directors and key personnel, and they love it. I had 100.
Oh, yeah.
over 140 people in one conference, and it didn't even blink.
Yeah, it's great stuff, man.
Yeah, it is.
Especially when you can record it. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's nice to be able to record videos, especially with a lot of, you know, you're having a kickoff call for something and you want to go back and reference what was said or whatnot. You know, hey, everybody, we're recording this for posterity or for folks that can't be a part of the meeting. And I mean, it's easy peasy, right? So it's nice getting everybody in a room, or we have folks that may be across county, external agencies that, you know, they have to drive 45 minutes because we are such a large county, just to be on a conference or be in a meeting that may last 30 minutes. This way they can still see, we can share, just having internal meetings with IT, being able to share desktops and say, okay, we're working on a document together, or we're working on this side or the other budget. You know, budget is going on right now. So that's been a huge thing, to be able to work on the budget. Sitting in my home office if I need to on the days that we telework. I mean, this has really forced us into using Teams and a lot of different things. I mean, it's really forced us into using technology that we didn't even know we had or weren't really utilizing. I mean, we did a lot of stream videos. If you're a Microsoft Office 365 customer, you should have stream, and it's like a private YouTube. So we've done a lot of videos and posted a lot of videos on simple things, how to use this, how to use that, how to forge your desk phone and things like that. So, we were really forced to, roll with the punches with this. And I think we've shined. And, I heard someone say the other day, we've grown in a few weeks, what we've not been able to accomplish in years. We've grown that fast. It's been at lightning speeds, being adopters of technology. So it's been really nice for us in that respect.
And I would agree with that. From our standpoint as well, that normally IT is in the background, and unless something goes wrong, they don't ever think about IT. But this has really brought our organization, and I think all IT organizations, to the forefront, and has really driven home the fact that it's important, that what we do is important, and that it needs to be supported monetarily. And so the timing of this is advantageous from the standpoint of everybody's working on their budgets. So I think our time is about up. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to bring up to the group?
I do, and I don't know if anyone can answer this, but one of the things that we've encountered since this began is our leadership asking for staff to be monitored for their telework, since they're not there to supervise them. And has anyone had that issue, and are they using any technology tools to address that?
I have a simple question for the directors that requested that of me, and it was simply, how do you monitor them when they're in the office? And that was my response, because just because someone is sitting at a desk, that whole management by walking around is doesn't make sense, because just because they're sitting at a desk, we all know those individuals who can make small talk, and they're there, but they're not doing anything, right? Versus those individuals who they come in at a certain time, they leave at a certain time, but they're highly productive during that time. So again, when I got the directors to start thinking about how they monitor the performance and really looking at the objectives, like saying, hey, it's really up to you and your managers to determine what those daily or weekly, whatever makes sense, objectives are that they want to accomplish. And quite honestly, don't waste your time thinking about if they're working between 8 and 5. Their power time is at between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. What does it matter? As long as that report or whatever it is that you need is done on time, then that's what you need to be focusing on. So it was really more, instead of trying to find technology to allow them to look at their computer or whatever the case may be, I was really trying to get them to have a paradigm shift of what's really important to you. Is it, and that's the reports or the data, whatever it is that you need. Let's focus on that. Now, for like you said, from a culture standpoint, you got to understand your culture. So part of what we did here to protect my guys, I wanted people to keep your own log, right? I'm not saying that I need to see it or anything like that, but I want you to keep your own log so that if somebody asks a question or there's opportunity to get some CARES money or whatever the case may be, you have that documentation. It wasn't that I could keep up, but it was really to protect you because, again, understanding your respective culture. So that was my response, quite honestly.
So what we've done, we were pretty much required to do a daily ICS 214 to track everything we do every hour, and it's usually one record an hour. So partially, I think it was for possible reimbursement through FEMA if that ever comes down the pipe. But so it's it's a little extra work, but it's not a hard thing to do. And yeah, that's basically how we've been tracking time or what we've done during the day. Either this is for not even teleworking, this is in office as well. So it's everybody has to do it.
Yeah, that's been my management style for years now. It's just, I'm outcome driven. As long as you meet your deadlines and you meet the outcomes, then I don't care if you do it at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. Like, it doesn't matter to me. You meet your deadlines, I'm good. And that's the mentality that we do. And I think somebody said it in the chat, is that you don't do technology to do management tasks. That's also been a very common theme. There isn't technology to do that. So know your people better. It's probably the real answer.
Right.
Yeah, before I sent staff home, it was the same way. Did not matter to me at all. What hours of the day you did it, as long as it got done, that's all that mattered. You had to flex out whatever time, however you needed to do. Yep. With what was going on at home. But I think in answer to your question, Rebecca, was other people asking about their staff. And I did have encountered a couple of those situations, and we do have software and tools in place that we can track that activity, any kind of files that are changed or VPN access and that sort of thing. So we have the ability to do that. We force all those requests to go through HR so that HR is aware that someone is asking for that kind of information. But that wasn't any different than what we do now. When everybody was on site, we still, whenever a supervisor asks for that kind of information, phone logs, network logs, anything like that, we always require that information to go through HR. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And it gave me some encouragement to have those conversations with our leaders too. Thank you.
Anybody have anything else that they want to pose to the group? I know I can't speak for the rest of you, but I know this has been incredibly helpful for me to see what everybody else has been doing and to get some ideas about how we can do things differently and going forward. So I appreciate your participation very much. It was very helpful for everyone, I think. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference. All right, take care.
And just a reminder to everyone that please head over to the virtual exhibit hall, and there will be prizes at 6:15.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.